On Sunday, we began our chat about sex, and we talked about the value and the need to not allow anybody to devalue you.
Amen.
And we talked about the blessings there are in saving the best for last.
Amen.
We said that when we save the best for last, we can avoid a lot of the negative consequences that come along with not saving the best for last. So if I just do what it is that God has told me to do, how it is that He told me to do it, a lot of things I won't have to go through if I just do it His way. There's His way, and then there's our own way, and oftentimes His way works a whole lot better than our way does. We talked about the 6 strategies to keep from falling into sexual sin, and tonight we're going to dive deeper into our discussion about how to deal with this whole sex thing, especially in a world that has been infected and is beginning to infect the church.
Amen. Amen.
It's beginning to affect the church. I told you we have a task of restoring the integrity of the church, restoring the integrity of what real Christians look like,
Amen.
What real Christians act like, what real Christians talk like. And so that is our great task now, because over the years, over time, because of things that have happened, especially in the sexual arena, we have found so many men of God, women of God doing so many ungodly things, and so it has put a damper or a tarnish on what it is that Jesus died for, and so we have to begin to restore that. Sex is the most Googled word on the internet. It's the most Googled word on the internet. You know, now we use Google as a verb. Actually, Google is a search engine, but we use it as a verb. But there's more people searching for the word sex than there are any other word on the internet. And we have to understand that this thing is for real. Like we cannot close a blind eye or a deaf ear to the sexuality or this issue that's present before us. And because we have not dealt with it enough, we have not hit it head on, we found that the world is beginning to teach our children and actually beginning to teach us how this whole sex thing is supposed to be. But we're going to begin to deal with it in a manner where you can understand how God said it would be. And I believe that we will have the God type of results if we do it His way.
Amen.
Dr. King once said that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the stringent clamor of bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. In other words, all it takes is for evil to prevail, is for good men and women to do nothing. For us to sit idly by and to act like everything is okay. That is all it would take for evil to prevail, for things to just be out of order. And so we cannot keep a quiet voice. We have to cry out loud about the things in which we see, those things in which are not in order, and we have to make sure that we address those things and we hit them head on. That's not always a comfortable position for a lot of people, but we have to get to that point, because we cannot allow those things to just continue on without being addressed. So tonight, we're going to deal with this whole sex thing in our message. This is message 5, fruitfulness before freakiness. Again, this is message 5, fruitfulness before freakiness. And tonight I hope to help you understand that, one, that sex is not a bad thing.
That's right.
But it is actually ordained by God. God never said, don't have sex. He just said, you must do it in the proper order. He said there's a proper order in you being able to do it. And so when we understand that, it's not that God was against it, not that God doesn't want us to have sex, because He knew that we was going to have that desire in us, because He placed that desire in us naturally. When He was creating us, and He didn't want you to have desire for that, then He would have taken that from you. But it was His intention that when you got married, that you would have a strong desire to become intimate with your mate. But He intended that that desire to become intimate, that you would have desire to become intimate with the person that is your spouse, the person in which you have have become one with, but it has been perverted over the years, and we have began to have that same desire towards people in which we have yet to become one with. And so, again, getting back to doing things in proper order and understanding that there is not an issue, it's sex. It's not the sex that's not the issue. You got to think, God told Adam and Eve to have a whole bunch of sex. You remember in Genesis, the first chapter, 28th verse, he said, multiply and replenish the earth. He said, go be fruitful. Yeah. So in other words, I need y'all to go and have a whole lot of sex. So it wasn't the sex was the issue, but he told them that after they had made a covenant agreement, after they had gotten married, after they had taken one another as one, after they had become one. That's when he told them that. It was afterwards. He never said anything about sex before that time, because that would have not been proper to be talking to deal with sex or to give them the okay for sex before they had become one. So he did that, and he wanted them, those two individuals, to begin to have sex and to replenish and to multiply and replenish, and not just the world. He didn't want them to multiply the world. He didn't want it just to be a lot more people. He wanted it to be a lot more people that served him. So it wasn't just, okay, just have kids just so there will be more kids, but have more people that can give me praise and that can give me worship. And that's why we're to train our kids up in the way they should go. And whether they go that way or not, that's not your issue. That's not your problem. Your thing is to make sure that you do your piece, and then God will take care of it after that, because they won't be able to go away from it. Amen. A lot of people have, especially nowadays, feel the need to get married so that they can have sex and not feel guilty about it. And the real question is, do you want to be married, or do you just want to have sex? And some people have now have perverted marriage to just mean that it's just so it's an opportunity for me to have sex. But we got to understand, marriage cannot be a antidote for your lack of self-control. Marriage can't be that thing that you use just because you hadn't learned to control yourself. Because the problem with that is, if you haven't learned to control yourself as a single person, you'll be that same married person that still can't control themselves. And so you'll go from fornication to just adultery, because you'll be the same person that has no self-control, that is not able to keep themselves. I tell people all the time, trust me, when you get married, your desire doesn't die down. You don't just stop seeing fine women and fine men when you get married. It just don't happen like that. They are always going to be present. They are always going to be that temptation there, and that's where our self-control comes in, and making sure we're doing things in the right order. And when we do things in the right order, we don't have the issues in which we typically have. A lot of times we find ourselves as being like falling cakes. You know, when somebody makes a cake, they put it in the oven. But the thing about a cake is that you have to let it alone until it's all the way ready. Because if you go in there too soon and you open up the oven, if you open up the place in which the refining is taking place, then you'll mess it all up. And see, sometimes God is doing a work in us, and we end up allowing the oven to get open before it's time, and the cake end up falling. The problem is, though, see, you can't fix that once it's failed. See, once a cake falls, you have to start all the way over. And I believe that a lot of times God is constantly sending people to the back of the marriage line because they cake constantly falling, and He constantly having to start over in their life. I believe that every time you have sex, He sends you to the back of the marriage line and tell you to start all over again, because you obviously ain't been ready to be married, because you obviously don't have no self-control. And I don't want to put you in a marriage where you're going to end up cheating and hurting somebody else because you're going to mess around and cheat on them because of your lack of self-control.
That's right. That's right.
Tell your neighbor, say, don't go to the back of the line. Don't go to the back of the line.
Don't go to the back of the line.
It's the fruitfulness that's going to lead to marriage.
That's right.
And then once I'm married, I'm free to have all the sex that I want.
Right.
So again, it's not God saying no, it's God saying not now.
That's right.
So it's not God saying no, you cannot have sex. He said, look, you just can't have sex right now because you're not in a season of marriage where you can have sex. And so He's not saying no, He's saying not now. He understands our sexual desires because He made us that way. We just cannot do the marriage thing as an individual. We have to make sure we're married before we get to do that. When Boaz took Ruth as his wife, what he saw in her